Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I start, if I may, by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Barrow and Furness, on bringing forward this important bill. It is a simple change, but this, subject to its passage through this House, Mr Deputy Speaker, this will be a landmark reform that he is bringing to the House. Today he spoke powerfully and made a very effective case through talking through real people and their case studies. I mean, so effectively that I have scored through very large parts of my speech in which I intended to illustrate a number of those points, so I thank him doubly for that. I also acknowledge and thank our honourable friend from Workington for the role that he played in bringing this bill to this place. The bill ensures that those most at risk of reoffending will no longer need to be released on a Friday or the day before a bank holiday. It will do it by providing the Secretary of State for Justice, in practice, the Governor, Director or appropriate for a prison or appropriate equivalent officer in a youth establishment, with a discretionary power to bring forward that release date by up to 2 eligible working days. It will mean that certain offenders will no longer face that race against the clock that my honourable friend so evocatively set out to find accommodation and access to medication and financial support before those services close for the weekend. That, of course, can be particularly problematic for those with multiple complex needs, such as drug dependency, mental health issues, and so on. And my honourable friend described it, I think, as a fleeting window of opportunity, and I think that sets out the issue very well. By removing the barriers that Friday release can create, we can maintain public protection by ensuring custody leavers have a better chance to access the support they need to reintegrate and turn their backs on a life of crime. Ultimately, it will result in fewer victims and less crime. The bill applies, as well as to adults, also to children sentenced to detention. Despite the various safeguards and legal duties that do exist for children leaving custody, it's still the case that being released on a Friday would mean going for at least 2 days without meaningful contact with a supervising officer when they're at their most vulnerable. I wanted to respond to what the lady from the opposition, the lady who represents Bolton South East, mentioned. I think it might come as a surprise to many to discover that actually you're only supposed to turn up in Parliament if you disagree with something, certainly to members on this side of the House. But she invited me to, she asked me to clarify the statistics on reoffending, and I'm pleased to be able to do so. This government has made very tangible progress in tackling the still huge £18 billion annual cost of reoffending and protecting the public. Data show that over the last 10 years, the overall proven reoffending rate has decreased from 30.9% in 2009-10 to 25.6% in 2019-20. Of course, still too high, and we must drive it down further by tackling the drivers of reoffending, strengthening the supervision and monitoring of offenders in the community and protecting the public from becoming victims. And we're, of course, investing substantial sums in doing that. It begins with helping prisoners to get off drugs, supporting them to maintain or rebuild family ties, providing quality education and training to get them ready, to get them job ready for release. And we know that getting prison leavers into jobs can reduce the chance of reoffending very significantly, with those who get jobs within a year of being released up to 9 percentage points less likely to reoffend. And that not only means individuals can support themselves and their families, but also start to repay society by contributing to our economy. And this is another important reason to support my honourable friend's bill. We want ex-offenders to get straight away into the rhythm of job search, and that'll be much easier if prison leavers are not having to cram all their appointments, including their first visit to Job Centre Plus, into a Friday afternoon. I'm pleased to say, Mr Deputy Speaker, that the proportion of prison leavers employed 6 months after release has seen a marked positive trend over the last year. And of course, with the number of vacancies that we have in the country right now, around 1.25 million, an increase in prison leavers getting jobs is also good news for our economy as a whole. But there's more to be done, including through the new Futures Network, the Prison Services Network of employment brokers who work with 400 organisations to get prison leavers into work. I commend all those employers, all those companies who are engaged in that programme. I was also delighted to hear from our honourable friend from Gedling that he and our honourable friend from Rushcliffe will be attending the Employment Advisory Board in Nottingham. And of course MPs can play, all of us colleagues can play an important role in creating some of those and promoting some of those links with business, which is so important for our whole community. We're also recruiting new banking and identity administrators to ensure that when prisoners leave custody, they have a bank account and ID, so they're ready to work. And this work to smooth those administrative requirements will be complemented by my honourable friend's bill to smooth out somewhat the leaving pattern of prisoners engaged in those administrative activities. We're also making significant investments in improving prison leavers' access to accommodation. And my honourable friend, I think the word he used was paramount in referring to having accommodation. It was also referred to very effectively by our honourable friend from Hastings and Rye and my honourable friend from Milton Keynes North. A settled place to live is key to reducing reoffending. And of course, also probation practitioners are much better able to robustly supervise an offender if they know where they are living. And this is one of the reasons why last July we launched the Transitional Accommodation Service in 5 probation regions, providing up to 12 weeks accommodation on release with support to move on to settled accommodation. To support prison leavers with substance misuse and health needs, we're recruiting 50 health and justice partnership coordinators across England and Wales. And these coordinators will liaise between prisons, probation, local authorities and health partners, including links improving links between services and supporting continuity of care for prison leavers with health and substance misuse needs. I wanted to turn briefly, Mr Deputy Speaker, to some of the other contributions we've had in what I think actually has been a really high quality debate with colleagues drawing on sometimes their personal experiences, their constituency experiences, from what we know about the brilliant work done by voluntary and third sector organisations in our constituencies in support of this important bill today. My honourable friend from Clwyd South spoke very effectively about the impact of distance. Just, whatever else you may have to do, first you have to get there. Our friend from West Bromwich West spoke particularly about the challenges facing children, and my honourable friend from Dewsbury about women. And of course they are absolutely right. There's been great success in reducing the number of women in custody and even more so children in custody, but there are relatively few places around the country, and that does of course mean that the average distances for those people who may have particular vulnerabilities is even greater, and that makes this bill all the more important. My honourable friend from Dewsbury I thought summed up this issue, what we're all here for, really well when he said, we just need to give people all the chance we can. And if what's getting in the way boils down to a day of the week, that really ought to be relatively straightforward to address. Of course, it won't address everything, but it is an important enabler. My honourable friend from Southend West talked about the fact this was really actually about correcting unintended consequences, and our friend from Loughborough, I thought, also encapsulated it very well by saying, you must do your punishment, but then we must try and give you the maximum chance. And also, actually, a very important point, talked about the effect on staff of seeing, of knowing that somebody released on a certain day of the week would have perhaps a lesser chance. My honourable friend from Clwyd South again enumerated very accurately all the different things that need to be in place, and our honourable friend from Lee reminded us that it's not just a question of turning up and doing something straightforward. In some cases, these issues for individuals will be particularly complex. My honourable friend from West Bromwich West also spoke about, of course, how for many prisoners, even those who haven't been in prison necessarily that long, how much the world may have changed if you think about technology and so on. And my friend from Hastings and Rye also about more closer to home, how people's family circumstances, how the home itself may have changed. Mr Deputy Speaker, the interventions that I've outlined, and many more there are not time to cover, should help to improve resettlement opportunities for all offenders and help reduce reoffending, but they can't fully address all the practical challenges, especially by those released on Fridays. And through this bill, we have an opportunity to provide such offenders with the best possible chance of living law-abiding and productive lives in the community. And we have an opportunity, therefore, to cut crime, making our streets safer and protecting our constituents. In closing, I just want to reiterate my thanks to my honourable friend, the member for Barrow and Furness, for bringing this before the House, and for everybody who is here today who has made this, I think, such a rich and productive debate. And I confirm with pleasure, Mr Deputy Speaker, that the Government will be supporting this bill, and I look forward to seeing its passage through this House.
With leave of the House, I call Simon Fell to wine.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and with the leave of the House, I'd like to thank everyone who's contributed to this debate and supported the passage of this bill. In particular, I'd like to recognise the contribution from the member from West Bromwich West. He spoke with righteous fury about youth offenders and how they face so many injustices in the system. His passion is well felt. The members for Dewsbury, Hastings and Rye and South End West spoke about the power of a criminal justice system that works in turning people's lives around. That is absolutely the objective we should be aiming for. I'd also like to thank my honourable friend from Dewsbury for the evocative term muscle pit, which is stuck in my head for the rest of the day, unfortunately. Member for Bolton South East on the opposition front bench spoke gracefully about why these measures matter, and I'd like to thank her and her party for their support. The members for Clwyd South, Lee and Gedling, showed compassion and fairness in what they said, and I think their contributions in this place every time are marked by those measures. The member for Loughborough could have, I'm sure, spoken for much longer on this subject. Her passion is heartfelt, her experience is long in this, and she's a credit to the House in what she brings in this area. And finally, the member for Milton Keynes North spoke with absolute passion, there he is, right behind me, about tackling homelessness. He's absolutely right, of course, and I hope that these measures will go some way to achieving those ends. I'd also like to thank the Minister for Prisons and Probation for his kind and thoughtful words at the dispatch box, and he and his team also at the MOJ, their graciousness in affording me time to learn about this subject and kick around ideas with them and talk about the issues that this bill seeks to tackle. Their passion to improve the system is heartfelt and real and burns very bright indeed. And I owe a debt of thanks to the member for Workington as well, who passed this bill on to me. Truly, he is the Pete Best to my Ringo, but I am incredibly grateful for him. This bill will make a real difference, and I am incredibly grateful to everyone here who's contributed and spoken on it, and for the support from both sides of the House. Thank you very much.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Congratulations, Mr. Fell, on your achievement.
Dyslexic